Hello and welcome to the IBEX Method Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Foutz, and today we have no other than Danny Delgado, fellow Marine, athlete, and financial advisor. How's it going, Danny?
Hey, how's it going on, Adam? How
I'm
are
good,
you?
man. I'm good, man.
Yeah.
So me and Danny go way back. We were in the Marine Corps together. I think, trying to think what years we were in Okinawa.
2007 to 2009.
There you go, 2007 to 2009. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were in Okinawa, Japan together. We were roommates. And I think we both motivated each other. I remember we going swimming with you a couple times, and then you were trying to you were trying out for recon, and I don't know what happened there, but
We could get to it later.
yeah. So essentially, me and Danny reconnected for this show today, just talk about what he has going on, his efforts coming up for the American Cancer Society. But before we get into all that, Danny, I just really wanted to see, check in, see how things are going, man. Let's talk about our history, talk about, how life is outside of, after the Marine Corps when it comes to, your efforts and your health and all that stuff. So start wherever you like, to be honest.
Yeah. I guess we could run a timeline from after I got out of the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidentally, I actually had my 10-year anniversary yesterday from getting my DD-214. So I got out of the Marine Corps February 11, 2011. Right?
Wow.
So it's 10 years. So it was a big deal. I felt actually I scheduled my tattoo appointment to get my Marine Corps, the rising of the flag at Mount Suribachi in Iwo Jima, tattooed on my arm. So it's pretty sentimental, I felt.
That's pretty amazing, man.
Yeah, I never got a moto tat when I was in the Marine Corps. I didn't get one. I actually had a bunch of tattoos, and I don't know. I never get a tattoo unless I feel some type of way, if you will.
Can you show it?
Yeah, it's wrapped up right now. So.
Oh, okay, I got you.
You could kind of see it. Let me see. I try to make an effort here. So.
Oh yeah, man, that's nice.
So there's the flag. The guys right there. So it's pretty detailed. Right? I mean, the plastic's not doing any justice right now, but yeah, it should be good. It's gonna take me about. I'll take the wrapping away on Monday, and then I just have to basically do aftercare, not ointments, just these special creams for to heal the skin. So it's pretty cool. It's it took me 5 hours to complete.
Wow.
Which is me, I don't like sitting down or being still for that long. So I'm glad there's cell phones these days, because I can't imagine what do you do for 5 hours without entertainment?
Yeah, I was thinking 5 hours. That's anywhere between a marathon and an ultra marathon, depending on who you are, to be honest.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into this, but when I'm running the 34 miles, I'm expected to do 6 hours.
Okay.
So yeah. But yeah, so I got out on February 11th, 2011.
I don't want to cut you off when I'm going to. I actually realized today I'm wearing my 100th anniversary of the Paris Island Viking Marines.
Ah. a lot of anniversaries, right?
Sheer. That's coincidence that you'd have your tattoo and I would have that shirt on today, but
that's how we are. I feel like we always do that.
Yeah. All right, so February 11th, 2011, you got out of the Marine Corps. What did you do in the Marine Corps? I know you did supply and stuff. You did, it was basically accounting and asset management at the basic level. And then what did you do, what type of activities from a physical fitness standpoint did you do in the Marine Corps?
Yeah, I basically try to do everything. Well, obviously, everything that has to do with the PFT and the CFT. All right, so I was always able to get 20 pull-ups. I think I got to a point where the max pull-ups that I did was 27 in a row. The fastest PFT one that I ever did was 1910. I'm gonna say 1920, something like that, somewhere around those lines. I don't know, can't remember. And then, I mean, sit-ups are sit-ups. I haven't done a sit-up since I'd done out of the Marine Corps. I can't get a 6-pack. So it's what's the point? So I never work out on my abs anymore. But I'm pretty sure I could do 100 still. Should be pretty easy. But I did a lot of running, you know, I as well, like you ran with me so many times. I did a lot of swimming when I was trying to, especially when when we were in Okinawa, and I
Yeah,
was trying.
I don't mean to cut. I was thinking about how we were at Camp Foster just doing laps and trying to beat like we'd get there with like 20 minutes left before the pool closes and just trying to knock out as many laps as we can and then
Yeah.
call it a day. But go ahead. Yeah, you just got me reminiscing. That's all.
We'll get to it, Adam. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else did I do? And a lot of pull-ups. I love benching. Benching's always been my thing since high school. I don't know, maybe because like I have short, stubby arms and like I'm pretty like barrel chested, so it's like pretty easy for me. And I just like it. I mean, who doesn't, right? And what else did I do? I don't know. I always just try to do new things, like things that kind of scare me or like worry me. Or like I'm like, oh, that's probably gonna. Can I swear in this, or do I have to watch my mouth?
If you could keep it to a minimum or not at all, it'd be good, But
Okay.
I can't control you, obviously, but we don't know who's going to be listening.
Well, I mean, if I'm able to control that one, I'm sure I'm
Yeah,
able
yeah.
to control it here as much as I can. So, yeah, anything that could mess, like I don't even know how to explain it. Mess me up, not mess me up, like hurt me, but like physically make me feel pain in a good way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I love that. Like I enjoy pain. Like to me, it's pain sucks for some people. It hurts, like it sucks, but I love it. Like I love it, and I can't be like more. Like I don't even know how to explain it, but I love that pain. I love that feeling, and it's because I know I'm going through this painful moment in my life, whether it's like physically, mentally, spiritually. Like I know at the end of the road, like I'm gonna grow, and like that's what excites me the most. Like I'm like, I'm gonna swear there again. Like I'm gonna grow from this. Like I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be a better person. And to me, like that's like beautiful, right? Like I know like there's growth coming into it. So it helps me not to be bogged down in the pain. Like a lot of people's like, man, you run that long. I'm like, yeah, it's painful for them, but I know once I'm done, I'm gonna be so pumped. Like every time I'm done running, I'm like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Like for example, like on was it yesterday? No, 2 days ago on Wednesday, it was like 10 degrees here in Chicago. But I ran like, which is funny because on Monday and Tuesday it was pretty similar degrees or weather. But today, like that day, it felt colder. So I don't know if it's like higher humidity made it colder, but it doesn't matter. So I was running my 5 miles, and once I got to my fourth, like 3.5 miles, 4 miles, my index finger, my middle finger started to go numb, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. Like, but I double gloved, right? I had my regular running gloves, and then I put, of course, Marine Corps gloves, like those cold weather gloves.
Yeah, I got you. I wore those this morning actually, doing some shoveling for the
Right?
car, so I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, whoever thought about grips with gloves, man, geniuses. But I was running with it, and I was like, I'm on my 4th mile, and then I'm like, oh man, my fingers aren't like I can't, like they're going numb, like I can't feel them. So I just started like try to put it near my chest, try to put it under my armpit. Like I was like, people were like looking at me in their cars, like, what's wrong with this kid? Like, why is he running with like I'm like if I can show you, I was like running like this, holding it down,
Like you're really having chest pains. Yeah.
yeah, they probably thought that like, what's going on? But I'm like, I would just like, people would look at me, I'll just be like, we're good, we're good, we're good. But they're probably like, yo, this kid's crazy. Like, why is he run? It's 10 degrees outside. It's like we had a bunch of snow, like, but he's still running. Like, but and like even going through that pain, I'm like, man, this sucks. Like, but as soon as I got home, like I'm like, that felt, I feel good. I feel good about it. So that's how I take life. That's how I take my workouts. Like, I it sucks doing it, but at the end of the day, like you'll be like, oh man, I accomplished that. So to me, it's pretty cool. Like I love it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good, man.
yeah. And then what else in the Marine Corps? Yeah, that's basically about it. About like what I did for workouts. Like I don't like to say I did anything special or like anything crazy. I just did it. Did the runs, did the pull-ups, did the sit-ups. Did the bench. Like just typical Marine stuff. Oh.
Yeah, what do you think is the furthest you ran in the Marine Corps?
Not that far. I think I want to say I ran like maybe the farthest was 7 miles.
I mean, it's respectable. It's respectable. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the farthest I ever did it. Like, which now that I look at it, it's kind of almost like hysterical. Like, really good. Like I used to think that like, oh, they're taking you to a death run, and we used to make it up like it was something crazy. Now I think back, I'm like, it's just 7 miles. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's awesome. All right, so we'll say max 7 miles. You did your basic physical fitness, combat fitness training. So for anyone who doesn't know combat fitness, it's a lot of like, I always call it like combat conditioning, and I think that's essentially what, you know, we did a lot of that in Okinawa. I think every Tuesday and Thursday I try to have the platoon or whatever, our shop, do combat conditioning, and then CrossFit came out like a year later, you know. But yeah, so combat fitness test, it's basically, to anybody who doesn't know, it's like CrossFit type stuff, but you're testing your anaerobic capabilities rather than just your aerobic endurance. This is more like high intensity interval type stuff, so that when you're in combat, you can simulate, you know, transitioning with ammunition, body carries, throwing a grenade, all this stuff, and working while you're fatigued. So just educating the non-military members of the audience. But all right, so you did all that, and then you got out in 2011. So again, congratulations on your anniversary getting out. So what have you been up to since then? Since for a decade ago till today?
So as soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, I was already I was in the Marine Corps. I enrolled into a college. So right away, as soon as I got done with my military service, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks later, I started going to school, which is a complete culture shock to me. Like, and it's not that the like age or anything like that. It's just like the demeanor behind like people's like their education and like the capabilities that they have. Like to me, it's like I love going to class. Like I don't know if it's FOMO or just, I mean, like some classes suck, but like I still like going. Like I always been that kid that loves going to school. That's like the only award I ever got in school. It was basically like saying, you know, I'll get perfect attendance.
That's something, man. Half the success is showing up. I think 80% of success is showing up. So
yeah, I guess that speaks a lot about me, right? Just like perfect attendance. So yeah, that's like I love going to school. But it was definitely a culture shock just because like everything that we had in the Marine Corps was structure, right? So it's like you know, especially in Okinawa, like 5 o'clock, like at 4:45, we'll be in formation. 5 o'clock, you know, we'll begin freaking doing our morning exercise, right? By 7:30, we were done. By 8, we got our chow, depending on how much time we had, and we were at the office, you know, going in and getting into it. And then from there, everything's so structured. Here, I will wake up. Like I was still like, I don't want to be another statistic, like a Marine getting out, getting fat, ugly, like whatever the case may be, right? So I'm like, no, I need to wake up. So I mean, I wouldn't wake up at 5 in the morning or 6, right? Let's be realistic, right? I woke up at 8, 9 o'clock. I went to go work out, hit the gym, and by 10 o'clock, I had my first class, and then I would have back-to-back classes because I only wanted to go. Like I'll go Tuesdays and Thursdays for the majority of the time. So I'll spend all day in school. So like I'll get to school at 10 and I'll be done with my last class at 10 p.m. Just because like I'm like, why go back and forth when I could just go all day? And then eventually like I went to like DePaul University. Like most students, I changed my major like 3 times, 4 times, I want to say. I started as an accounting major. I did great in it, but I couldn't see myself like being in the office, looking at numbers all day, not being able to talk to people like that. Like that's not who I am. I'm very outgoing. Well, not at first, but once you get to know me, I'm very outgoing, very talkative. And I'm just like, you know what? I can't do this. So I'm like, well, it's not that I can't do it. I don't want to do this.
yeah.
And then I switched my major to marketing. And then I'm like, oh, this is going to be more client-based. Like I could talk to people. I'd be able to express my ideas. I'd be able to, you know, have conversations, go back and forth, banter. And while I was in there, like, like I basically saw no job growth on there. And I'm like, do I just want to not have a job when I get out. Like, I don't want to be like another college student that graduated and working in as a barista in Starbucks. Like, that doesn't seem appealing to me.
Yeah.
So then I switched I'm like, so what can I do? I'm like, oh, I love math. I've been pretty good at it. So even when I got out of the Marine Corps, I placed into calculus, which blew my mind. I even told the advisor, I'm like, don't do that to me. Like, don't put me to calculus. Like, I need like preliminary, like
Yeah.
before you get me into it. So, it's like, that's something I always say is like, you got to know yourself. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I know myself. I'm like, yeah, I placed into calculus, but it's going to be rough for me. So, cause I mean, it was 5 years since I've been in school and done math, any type of math. But then I'm like, man, I need a job. Like, I'm not going to be a mathematician. Like, where am I going to get a job after I graduate being a math major? So I settled with economics, which has a lot of math, a lot of calculus in there as well. And I figure, and it's very universal, right? Most of it is like, it's very business, very math, very analytical, especially because I got a BS instead of a BA. So it's more math or
more specialized, I guess. I forget how it works.
Yeah, bachelor science, more science than arts.
Yeah.
Right, whatever that means. And then I settled in economics, and then I graduated DePaul University in 2014. So it took me basically 3 years since I got out of the Marine Corps to graduate. So I went to school all year round. So I went in the summers, I went during Christmas breaks. Like, I was just trying to get done as quickly as possible, just because I felt that versus my peers, I was behind just because I was in the Marine Corps for 4 or 5 years, right? So I needed to catch up some way. So I'm like, let me just knock it off in 3 years.
Yeah. What year did you graduate?
2014.
Okay.
In June.
Nice.
Yeah. And after that, well, even before I graduated, I already had a job lined up as a financial advisor. So I was starting to apply in January, February. We met up in one of my jobs that I got sent to Washington, D.C. for the final interview process. And we did karaoke.
Yeah, we met up with your cousin who's a Marine, and then we did karaoke. We also went to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Oh, that's where we first met up. That was cool. That was a great experience. I wish I had the pictures and the videos that I took, because I lost that phone, or I broke that phone, and it's gone. Yeah, so like, I actually was about to take that job too, but I know now that I would have hated it. Like, it pays good. It's like a bank examiner position, but it's just like accounting. Like, you'll be by yourself. You'll be looking into data, making sure that the banks are doing what they're supposed to be doing. There's no discrimination of any kind, right? Of it, like age-based, like sexes and all that stuff. So I'm glad I didn't get that position, because after, like, I didn't even get it, to tell the truth. Like, they basically is like, no, we're gonna give it to somebody else. Chicago's very competitive, so I'm sure. Like, I mean, plus, like, I was like, I was just a graduate. Like, I was about to graduate, so they gave it to somebody that's more experienced, which is, I'm okay with that now. But at the time, I was like, man, that sucked. And one of the only reasons that I actually got to the final interview is because I was a Marine. Like, they gave us extra points if you had a military service, because it's a government agency where I was applying to. So to me, I was like, oh, cool, thanks. Maybe we do get hooked up. But another reason too is because I was interning. I was an intern for that government agency. So, like, the heads up of that department, or that whole section, like Chicago, they basically boosted me up there. They're like, all right, get this guy. We want him. Unfortunately, like, I don't know what happened. They didn't like me, or maybe there was like somebody that's better from Chicago. But that sucked. Like, I was like, I caught myself. I was like, dang. Let me use your word. I was like, dang. And I really wanted this job. That was gonna be good. It was like where I wanted to. At the time, I had a girlfriend. I was like super excited, like telling her all about it and getting hyped up. And we were discussing like our future with that job and where we're gonna go with it. And I come back and I told her, and I didn't get it. So it was like a little little like in the heart, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know, I didn't give up. You know, I continued to apply to jobs, and you know, the more that I started applying to jobs, the more I was like leaning towards being a financial advisor. And then and the reason, like, I already had a background in like in the financial advisor world, because when I was like 19, my mom like saved up like a bunch of money that my dad gave her for child support, and then when I was 18, 19, she gave it to me. So as soon as I got that money I had in my bank account, I went to Las Vegas and I spent it. No, I'm just kidding. I actually took it. I went to a financial advisor and I told him, I was like, hey, I want to invest this money into the markets. And then they literally, this is a guy that had gray hair. Like he looked like he was like in his 50s, 60s. And he looked at me like a punk kid. Like I have a baby face, but back then I can't, like I looked like I was like 12 years old. He's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I want to invest my money. He's like, for what? I'm like, for retirement. And he's like, why are you thinking about retirement? I'm like, because I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be broke when I retire. Like I want to have money. You know, I don't want to be another statistic. And he's like, how old are you? I'm like 18, 19 years old. He's like, do you have a job? I'm like, yep. I was like, I'm in the Marine Corps. And then he's like, and then he told me, he's like, how come you want to do this? Most kids want to buy their car, to go to Vegas, you know, go, you know, spend it all. And I'm like, well, I already have a car. I can't drink in Vegas. I'm only 18, 19 years old. And I don't need this money. So might as well put into investments. And he's like, well, what do you want to invest it in? Like he was asking me questions to make sure that I, like, he's like something was wrong with me or something like that. And I answered him, I'm like, let's put money in pharmaceuticals. Let's put money in oil. Let's put money in technology. And he's like, why'd you pick those? And I'm like, one, everybody needs oil for their cars. Like this is like the biggest commodity we have in the United States. And mind you, this is 2006 when oil prices were like $4 or $5, right? Pharmaceuticals, I'm like, people get sick all the time. You know, we have an aging population. We're gonna need more, right? And then information technology, I'm like, the internet's the future. Like, why wouldn't you invest in it?
Time out. I want to say that
Yeah.
Danny is a financial advisor, but he is not giving you financial advice at this time. He's just telling his story. And so please continue.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for that. I could get in trouble. Well, I haven't said any type of recommendations, but this is not recommendations. So he's like, okay, cool. He's like, all right, we'll put you in those investments. Now, mind you, I had no idea that I want to become a financial advisor at that time. That was still 2006. Like I was 2005. I was still like, went to the Marine Corps. Didn't think about it twice. I basically lost money, like 50% of my account in 2007, 2008. Like, I'm just like, all right, I'm never going to look at this until like later. So like, that's really like my true, like first understanding of being an adult. Like, I'm like, man, I just put my money and I lose half of it. Like, you know, being an adult sucks.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And it's all downhill after that. No, I'm just kidding.
No, man, I just real quick, it takes me back because I remember being 19 years old. I'm in Okinawa. And what happened is after boot camp, I tried to enroll into TSP, but my application didn't process properly. Yeah. And they had like that bootleg website in the early 2000s, if you remember.
Yeah.
So it was hard to even register on there. So I'm like talking to leadership about the same thing. Like, hey, I want to do TSP. I want to get involved in retirement. And all I did was save my money. I didn't have any reason to use it. And I remember being 19 and the same conversation. They're like, why are you worrying about retirement? You're only 19 years old, you know? And then here I am in my 30s now, wishing I still would have put money in when I was 19. So I'm glad that guy at least put your money in the market for you.
Yeah, you know, he didn't put it where I wanted it though, for sure. Cause I took it back. I remember when I was looking at the statements once I became a financial advisor and I look at the funds that he put me in and I'm like, yo, you put me in the investments that I want. Like it wasn't even, could even come close. Like, I'm like, why'd you put me to these things? Whatever, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, no, I get it. Took you down a rabbit hole. All right, so through all that, you still weren't sure about being a financial advisor, and then you were in the Marine Corps. You lost 50% of whatever you invested, from my understanding. Yeah, being an adult sucks for you. Yeah. now you're making a rebound. No, yeah. All right, go ahead.
No worries. So And obviously you lost money there for it, but yeah, I didn't even think about being a financial advisor. But it wasn't until after I got rejected from my first job offer, which typically that was the only one I actually put a job off, like my application in, which is probably not that smart, right? But that's what I did. The same thing with college. I only put my college application to DePaul. I didn't put it into any other school, and I'm like, if they accept me, they accept me. If not, I guess I'll have to wait, or I don't know what I'm gonna do. But luckily, they did accept me, which is good because like I had no plan B. Like it was just me, like let's do it. Um, so it wasn't until like I was looking for jobs, like getting close to graduating from DePaul, that I was like, I'm like, wait a second, you know, I've been investing since I was 19, and I'm like, it was like 25, 26 then. And then I'm like, I like this. I like talking to people. Like I like, first of all, like, you know, kind of like the Marine Corps when they sucked us in with the uniforms in like the commercials. Like I'm like, man, those guys look sexy. Like I want to look like that. Like they look cool. Like they look mean. I saw financial advisors. I mean, these guys had nice watches, wear suits every day, which I love wearing suits. I don't know anybody. I don't know why people complain that wearing suits. I love it. Like it makes you feel like wearing my dress blues. I love wearing my dress blues. Like to me, it's like I'm like, yeah, like it gives me like power or whatever you want to call it. I'm like, oh, maybe I should start looking more into financial advising. And then I started applying more and more jobs. I think I had like 4 or 5 interviews for financial advisors, and then I settled to the one here in Chicago. And then that's where I met my mentor, which is probably like a great thing because he literally boosted my career, my knowledge, my thought process, and every single aspect. That like there's people that are in the financial world that are older than me, and I could give you an example. I went to a happy hour with like in the financial district here in Chicago, and there's a bar with a bunch of advisors, brokers, you know, people in the industry go to. So I went to it, and then, you know, I was just talking to a couple of advisors, and they're like, and then they asked me, he's like, "How old are you?" I'm like, I think I was like 31, 32 at the time. And they're like, "You're 31, you're 32, and you're building your own team?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, what are you talking about? Like, I was so confused. I'm like, wait, do people not in their 30s do? Like, I was so confused. And they're like, "How are you building your own team? Like, how do you do your own management? It's like, you do your own portfolios?" I was like, "Yeah, I do my own portfolios. I do my own management. Like, I build my own teams. I build my own strategies. Like, I'm doing the recruiting myself. I'm doing the interviews. I'm doing the offers." And they're just like so dumbfounded. They're like, "How are you able to do all that?" I'm like, and I'm so like looking. I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, are you trying? Like, what do you mean? Like, this? It's,
Yeah.
don't you know how to do that?" It's just like during their time or whatever, however they got taught, they just basically stood. They basically like they were just like the guy with the hammer,
Yeah.
right? Everything's in them. To me, I'm like, let me get this entire toolbox. Let me get this rock. Let me get this freaking club. Like, I want everything. Like, give me, give me, give me. And to me, like that's it was. I have to thank my mentor for it because like he actually helped out a lot more than actually ever would figure, because I probably would have been that person that's, you know, just had that one hammer and then everything's a nail, right? So I did definitely give props to my mentor. And like after 2 years of being in this firm, I actually went to Tampa, Florida for 2 years to go with my mentor. I thought it was a great opportunity. I knew I was gonna learn a lot, and I did. And we went out there, just us two. There was not even an office. There wasn't a desk. There wasn't, you know, like a phone. Literally,
Yeah.
I went there and I'm like, oh, like what's going on? But we built it up, right? Like I feel like I had a huge part of it too. Like we went from 2 advisors to 30 by the time I was done with my assignment. We were getting ready to open up another office in Orlando, but you know, I'm a Chicago kid, man, through and through. I love Chicago. Adam, you know how much I talk about Chicago all the
Yep.
time. I rep it every single time we have a conversation.
Yep.
So you know,
Shots out.
I have to win the city, right? Just
Yep.
don't go to the south side. Well, past 31st, 40th, 31st. Yeah, somewhere around that 32nd. Um, so yeah, after that, like I learned so much, So everything that I learned in Tampa, from like recruiting, interviewing, training, mentorship, building a team, I learned from my mentor, and I came back here to Chicago. I've been here 2 years, going my third, and then I'm doing exactly the same thing. Well, I started doing the recruiting last year in 2020, but the first year they were doing the recruiting for me, and then they fired one of my guys without even asking me to my new firm, and I'm like, dang, like these guys, call myself again, like I'm like, how are you gonna do that? Like, I'm like, and then I told them, like, well, I'm doing my own program, my own recruiting program. I'm gonna hire my own my own advisors. I'm gonna build it up. And they just looked at me and they're like if I couldn't do it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, no, I could do it. There's no problem. How are you gonna do it? And so I wrote out a proposal. I told them how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna train them. And it was like, and I'm like, oh yeah. But to me, it seemed normal because I'm like, yeah, I did this before. But to them, they're like, oh, how do you know this? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like, it's normal. So I did it all 2020. So even during the pandemic, like I was interviewing, I was recruiting, I was like calling them, doing the preliminary calls, like, hey, try to feel them out, see if they're good. And then I hired 4 advisors, and actually beat the recruiters, which their number one job is to recruit people.
Wow.
And they had 2 people, and I recruited them by myself and doing my job 100%. Like, so they basically this year, they're like, we're gonna invest everything with recruiting with you. So it's like they elevated me in the company. I'm the head of recruiting and training and leadership. And like I run everything with recruiting and training with new advisors, and I'm building the whole entire team. They gave me a goal of 5, and I'm like, well, if I'm doing everything now, like I probably could get 10 easily.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm like, you better bonus me out if I do. And they're like, okay. It's negotiations, man. You know,
Yeah, it's good.
you gotta ask, and then you shall receive. So I asked, and they said, yeah. Yeah. So like I'm just like now, like I still haven't gotten. This is so new that I still haven't gotten my title yet. Because I was gonna tell Adam to put it in, but I'm like, wait a second, it's not official. Let's wait for it. But yeah, that brings us up to now, based since the Marine Corps.
Yeah, so that's good, man. So I think some things you said, I think that stuck out to me was I took some notes here, but I like the idea. You said know yourself. So you were talking about just your pain tolerance and stuff like that, I believe. Just the idea, again, knowing yourself and what you can handle. And it seems like to me too, is within your story, there's a lot of times you're just starting from scratch. You don't really know where you are at the moment. You know the end state and what you want, and you're trying to figure out all the ingredients in the current process to like get the end goal. So like with college, it's like starting into a new environment and then trying to figure out navigating employment. And then you started as, from my understanding, a financial advisor in Chicago, took a leap to then be one down in Florida, where you started literally from ground zero, build up. And you're like, no, I'm out. And then you started again at ground zero. Now you're building up again. So it seems like that pain thing that you mentioned earlier, it just seems like you're just very much attracted to it. Like you want to keep growing, keep challenging yourself. I like the things that you said too. It's like, when you talked about DePaul and only putting in one resume, like you already had your mind made up. So like decisions were already made for you in your own mind before they ever fully executed. And it was like, it's no matter what you were going to do, that you knew the end state and that's what you're going to be working towards. Like you said, there's no plan B. I like the idea of, you mentioned like uniforms and financial advisors and how, like I love getting dressed up for work, but because we're in a COVID environment, there's no motive for me to do that. But I have a couple of suits, and I always enjoyed going into the office, as a business consultant and just consulting and just being like feeling good, in uniform.
Yeah. So let me cut you off here real quick.
You're good. You're good.
I was saying, I don't know if it's mine or I probably took it from somebody. And I always say, I'm about to go do something else, but let me go back. Look good, feel good, do good.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying, right? So to me, like if I look good, I'm gonna feel good, so I'm gonna do good.
Yeah, that's good, man. I like that.
Yeah.
Say it one more time. How do you say it?
Look good, feel good, do good.
Nice, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna say like I invented it. I probably took it from somebody. Like I always say too, is like I'm like the Steve Jobs of things. Like I don't come up with the ideas, but I make them better.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that 100%.
Yeah.
Again, this is all about you though, so we're gonna focus in on you. So going back to the Marine Corps, going back to financial advising. So it made me think, just a question, right? Like you say you saw a recruiter in uniform, like, oh, they look good. You saw a financial advisor, you're like, oh man, like they're like, is there somebody in the fitness world or in the health world that you look up to?
I mean, I guess the only athlete, if you want to talk about athletes, is going to be Michael Jordan.
Nice, man.
Right? I'm from Chicago, of course. Yeah. Right? And it's just it's mostly his drive, like, and his focus that I admire, that I like, I emulate everything that like I basically like do is like emulating him. Like he's like, oh, I can't get past the Pistons. Let me work out. Let me get tougher. Let me like thicker so I can get beat up throughout the season and still be able to have my body healthy enough to get beat up by the Detroit Pistons, right? And then he went through failure after failure after failure and after failure, and he just bottled it up down in his pit of his belly and used it as fodder to freaking fire up and destroy the Detroit Pistons. And I love that mentality. That type of mentality is like, it's given to me. Like, yeah, I'm gonna fail. I love failure. Like failure is the biggest motivator that anybody can get. And it's like fire, right? Fire can warm you up, or fire can burn down your house. Like you have to tame it. So like you have to tame failure, because failure can burn down your house, but failure can use it to motivate you to do whatever you want to accomplish. So to me, like it's how you see it, how you view it. And I'm especially like now, like we're living through a crisis, of COVID, right? Anybody could like be stuck on it and be stuck. Like, and I'll give you an example of myself. Like I was living by myself 2020 when the whole COVID situation started back in March, right? And I was like, I like to pretend, or think that I'm a pretty strong-minded individual, but it definitely took a huge toll on me, like mentally. Like I was isolated by myself. The only time I even saw people is when I went to grocery shopping. And even then, like I wouldn't even talk. Like I'll be like, here, I would just exchange, just because it was so new. Like I would hold my breath when I walk next to people, because I'm like, man, I ain't trying to get COVID. Like people are dying. Like
Yeah.
So it was like I was one of those people that's like, all right, like this is crazy. So, and then all I did was just stay at home. I did my work there. Like I had no contact with people, by myself. I even gained, I must say, like at the time I was like 163 before COVID started, and I went up to like 10 more pounds, like 173, 174, which is I'm that's a lot. Like that's a big difference. But yeah, man, it challenged me. Like I was getting agitated. I couldn't like hold a good conversation. I was just like in a bad place. So even then, so what happened? Like I'm like, I need to, like, I saw myself and I'm like, I need to change this. I need to, like, my mental health is deteriorating. So, and I haven't really worked out during that time period. It wasn't until like May when like they actually lifted some of the restrictions for staying at home. And as soon as that happened, I started running. Like, and Lord knows that I needed it. Like my when I run, it's just like a mental health checkup for me. It's my meditation. It's me going to the psychologist, like, because like I just talk to myself. I don't run with music. I don't run with like anything else, entertainment or nothing. It's just me, my brain that won't shut up, and then we just run. Next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I'm done. So that, I couldn't even run. Like I think I ran the first time like 3 miles. So like for the whole week, the most I ran was 9 miles.
Wow.
Yeah, but then by the time that July timeframe came, I was able to run 30 miles, and then October, as you know, I ran 50 miles.
Yeah.
1 week in 6 days. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Danny sent me a training plan. He said, "What do you think about doing this in a week?" So I gave him a little critique, and then I think you were kind of like, "Yeah, why would I not run 14 miles in a day or something like that?" And then,
Oh yeah, yeah. You told me to run double digits, and then I'm like, because I was gonna run for 7 days, and then I'm
yeah,
like, and then halfway through, I'm like, oh, I feel fine. Like I'm not sore, I'm not tired, nothing hurts. And then I'm like, you know what? My last day, or my last running day on Saturday, I was like, I'm just gonna run 14 miles,
yeah,
and I was probably the most hype that I've been all year, and like it was made like I needed. It's like almost like you know, like a spiritual awakening.
yeah. It's interesting. So you mentioned like the fire, right, and taming it, and like I think of fire, I think of like kindling. And what's funny is like during that time for me, where I was mentally was like, I gotta put in my miles. I gotta get to my 30 miles a week. I also had that month was Greg was doing his physique competition, and
Oh yeah,
then the Marine Corps Marathon. You could start like mid-November or mid-October or like later October to do. I signed up for the 50K and went virtual, so I wanted to do the trifecta, and then you ran the 50 miles.
yeah.
And I ended up like that just motivated me to just like, let me just do the 50, and then I ended up doing 63, like. So it's cool, man. It's cool, like feeding
Yeah,
off each other and encouraging each other. So
yeah,
it,
you're
it,
like your video hyped me up so much. I ran 60 miles. I was like, I was like, damn. Was it 60 miles? Was it more? What was it? Was
yeah, it
it?
was 63.6. So it was a 10K plus a marathon plus a 50K. Yeah,
Yeah,
and the Marine Corps gave you a month to do all three events, and I was like, well, I want to do it in a single day, and watching you do the 50 in the week, and then having Greg. So Greg Sandrich is another Marine we were in Okinawa with. But he ended
yeah.
up doing the physique
Shout
competition.
out,
Yeah. And I was coaching him that week for the competition, and then I was just amped up, dude. It was just a good week. Like you did your thing that week, then he did his thing. I'm like, I'm just gonna go out and run this thing, And I called you. We talked for 2 hours, during
Yeah,
that run,
that's
and then
great.
all I had was a protein bar and coffee, like an 8-ounce cup of coffee, and we're talking. And I'm 16 miles in. I started at 11:40 at night, and I'm talking to you, and I'm like, I think I'm just gonna go home and eat. You're like, are you gonna make it? I was asking to eat, dude. I just realized I have no water on me. It's 2 in the
Yeah.
morning, and I'm 16 miles into this run. So, but yeah, no, it's a cool experience because again, as you're going through your process, like it kept reminding me, like all I got to do is just put in the miles. Like put in. It's not about working hard all the time. It's just put in the miles, no matter how fast or slow you go.
Yeah,
And
perfect attendance. Showing
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Just do it.
So you going through that reminded me of that principle, and that was important to me. And I'm like, hey, you know what? Like if I could just pace myself, I'm good. It's not about just knocking it out as hard as you can every single day. But
Yeah, no, and I think that's like a new type of thought process too, like of training
mhm.
instead of because as we know, like even as Marines, like we're like you need to go balls to the walls, like you need to be puking, you need to be hurting, like you need to be like hyperventilating. But like now, as I'm older, I'm like, well, that doesn't sound appetizing anymore. Like I'm not trying to, who am I trying to impress, right? So like even like now where how my training, I took us like a slow pace and I'm
Mhm.
building up and I'm maintaining and building up and maintaining and building up and I'm thinking longer, but like I see better results than just trying to get that instant gratification and be like, oh, okay, like I got there. Um, so yeah, it's like I think it's a better type of workout. But
I love it. I'm actually, as you're talking, I'm getting like this idea of like the common, like comparing running to investing, right? It's like I can take all my money and throw it into the market, and I hope I timed it just perfectly so I could do very well, um, and I could run as hard as I can, and hopefully that's good enough to get me where I want to be in that moment. But when you're cost down averaging, if you will, like slowly putting in a little bit over time, your progress goes a lot further, and it's you see that in finances, you see that in routines when it comes to workouts. So I think
well, even
it's
dieting, right?
yeah, yep,
I actually use that example as when it comes to investments to some of my clients, because like everybody knows about these diet fads, right? They're like, oh, and then I ask them, it's like, well, what happens in a couple months after they start doing it? Like, oh, let's stop. And then what happens after that? It's like, oh, then they gain the weight back. I'm like, oh, interesting. So if you're trying to get like this target, like be higher risk when you don't need to be, and then yeah, it might feel good for for a little bit, and like yeah, you gain a lot, but then what do you think is gonna happen after a while? Oh, you're gonna lose just like the diet. I'm like, oh, interesting. Like maybe that's not like such a great idea, huh? Like,
That's good, dude. That's real good.
yeah. I mean, everybody knows. Everybody talks about diets. Everybody's dieted
Mhm.
before. They understand it. So I think it's a pretty fair comparison. I feel, and it's not a recommendation, guys. Again.
Yeah. No, it's good too. I'm thinking as you're talking, I'm thinking about the program that I went through in 2019, where my journey was just trying to get my health back, get my life back after the Marine Corps. I got medically retired, and I probably said it like 5 times on the show already throughout the season, but it was like starting from like all I could do was a modified push-up. I could barely even walk. Some days I couldn't walk at all. Fast forward 5 years, I do this program with Vince, and like I was like, if I want to get better at running, like running became the thing that I focused on, and it took 5 years to just truly do what I wanted to do in running.
Big
But
ups, dude. Big ups.
thanks,
That's what I'm
man.
saying too. Like even now, like I think about it, I'm like, oh, like Adams like had to rebuild himself up from like the ground up. And I'm like, why can't I do it? Like I was at 173 in May, and by the time I was like, I want to say like June, July, like July, I lost 23 pounds. I was
Wow.
like, yeah, it's like in those couple, it's like I lost more, yeah, I lost more weight in those like 2 months than I did when I was in boot camp. But in boot camp, I lost even like I was smaller then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and normally I'll talk about what, the physical progression, but from a meal standpoint, I got down to 151. I wasn't trying to lose weight. It just happened to be the program. Even though I was bulking and muscle mass and my
Yeah.
body fat was going down, I was thinking I was 151. And I told him, hey, we got to change something up. I feel like I'm losing weight too fast. But here I am. I mean, we're in 2021. I'm 152 right now, and I'm not doing the strenuous. It's just because the plan that he gave me was actually sustainable. It wasn't like this fad that, it's like, hey, go ahead and drop 10 pounds in a week, and then you'll skyrocket to 20 because your metabolism's jacked, like.
Exactly.
Yeah. So all that to say, I could definitely relate to that story, and it's cool. It's like, it's just cool to see that transformation could be sustained if you do things the right way,
Yeah, and it's we were programmed to get it like gimme right now. But it's like, we have to focus on just understanding it's like, hey, we keep doing it's more of a lifestyle change, right? That's gonna change things, right? Because if you don't change your lifestyle, you do this diet fad, you're gonna fail. It's literally you have to change your life. It's not a diet routine. It's something like, no, this is different. This is gonna change you need to change it. In order to grow, you need to change. Like that's the bottom line. Like you have to do that. So during that time when I was stuck in my house, like I had to change, right? So I had to do it, and it began with running. Like maybe I can't change my attitude, maybe I can't change, how I'm acting and how I'm being as a person, because I felt like during that time I was being like such a almost I get passionate here, I get passionate here.
I get it. I get it. I get it.
So it's I almost so it's like I was acting like a terrible person. Like I just wasn't like I wasn't acting like Danny. Well, I probably was acting like Danny, just more like
the aggressive side of Danny, maybe.
Yeah, like well, it's like an unfiltered Danny to like the power of 10. Like it was just like more maximized. And I'm like, I didn't like the person I was acting like, and I'm like, man, this like I need to change. Like I'm just lashing out. I'm not being compassionate. I'm being very selfish. And I'm like, I need to change. And I'm like, all right, so what's the thing that I can do? I'm like, oh, I can run. Okay, let's get back to that. There's like little things in my life that I had to change, like small. Like I didn't like, oh, let me change and try to be this brand new person. No, it's like little things. All right. I set myself goals, because those goals, like if I accomplish them, I'm like, okay, I'm heading to the right direction. Right? If I accomplish this, I know I'm on the right path. If I accomplish this, I'm going to the right path. And I can basically kind of like temperature check myself. I'm like, all right, did I accomplish this when I said I was going to do it? No. Okay, why not? Like I could self-reflect, and I'll do it when I run. So each week I told myself when I started running, I'm like, all right, I'll do nine miles this week. I'll do 12 miles the next week. Then I'll do 15 miles the next week. Then I'll do, continue that till I get good. And then I'll do 20 miles, and I maintain that for a while. And then I think that's when I called him, like, I should do 50 miles. Like, or no, I did 30 miles one week. And after that 30 mile, I was just like, man, I have this itch. Like, I need to, like, because 30 miles was probably the most I ever ran in a week. And then I'm like, I could probably do 50 miles. So I said, let's do it. And that's what I set it up. And then that's like, since then, like, I definitely don't feel like I'm the same person I was back in 2020, for sure. Like, I feel like I'm starting to think more selfless, because I'm a very selfish individual. I mostly think about myself, like how I feel, how things are gonna affect me, and I'm very vain too, as you know, Randall. I'm a very vain person. So I'm trying to slowly change it. I mean, obviously, I know it's not gonna be next month, and the following might take a couple years, but I'm slowly trying to transform the person that I am, or I was in 2020 or before that, to try to like grow, just grow in general as an adult, mature. But yeah.
No, that's good. Yeah, Danny, I think that's a lot of good stuff. And I think that kind of segues into, kind of one of the main points of this discussion today is what you have going on today. I think that from what I'm seeing, kind of thinking about the idea that, you're not, I classified you as an athlete. And one of the debates is like, what is an athlete, right? I think anybody who's willing to do anything physical, even if it's just walking, you're an athlete, I mean, there's Olympic walkers, you know what I mean? But for you, yeah. So for you, it wasn't about always the competition, but also about the therapeutic side and helping you grow mentally and keeping you grounded. So for you, it's in a way to escape. And I think for anybody too, going through, again, their health and fitness journey, I think that anybody's going to tell you that if you just do something, it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's yoga, it doesn't matter if it's walking, running, sitting on a bike, just doing something to get your heart rate up, something to get your mind focused on something else. There's just some health benefit to that mentally. And you kind of alluded to that, like you got yourself picked up and moving during COVID, and that had been tough for you. So I just really like that component. Is there anything you want to add to that before we kind of make the shift in the conversation?
No, I think that's good. I think it's just doing something, right? I think just getting up, even if it's walking, walking your dog, challenge yourself doing, instead of doing a couple blocks, double it, triple it, it'll be good for your dog, right? And it'll also be good for you. And then eventually start running, right? It's like it always says, you got to crawl before you can start running and walk. So to me, I think it's just, again, my perfect attendance is just being there and doing it, right? Like that's the type of person I always been. But I am very competitive too, because to me, and it's probably like why I love running, is that I love the pain, and to me it's like, all right, like even when I play basketball, they're like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna beat you the first couple games, but you're gonna get so tired out, then I'm gonna eventually beat you.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I'm very defensive. Like I used to do wrestling and stuff. Like, let me figure you out first, so then I know how to beat you. Because I could go in and have my own strategy, but if you can outpower me, I used to lock up with people, and like I was a tiny guy. I had leg strength. I had no upper body strength.
Yeah.
But I could tell by the way you would lock up with me on the type of wrestler you're gonna be, and then that would dictate how I would adjust. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like one guy, I locked up with him and I shook him real quick. I'm like, this dude is weak, So I just 16 seconds was my fastest pin ever, and I met him again later that year, and I beat him again. And I'll be honest, I only wrestled for a year. I did it on a dare, and I was like 2 and whatever. But I got the starter position for my school for the 125 weight class, and like actually I had. For varsity, I had 2 wins and 17 losses or something like that. And then for JV, I was undefeated. And my coach was like, "Oh, I should have probably just kept you at JV, because But yeah, it's like being able to tie up and size up your opponent, and then be able to understand all right, like this is their weakness, so I can adjust to beat them. No, I like that. So yeah, just when we talk, I always know you are competitive as well as you are grounded. But part
Trying
of
to.
it's like, yeah, it's like part of it's with yourself, part of it's with others, you know, and I think we spur each other on a lot, which is good. And
Yeah.
again, just go ahead, go ahead.
That reminds me of like of wrestling. So when we used to grapple, we could never, nobody would win. We literally would just get into like, we would just tire ourselves out. And I'm me thinking, I'm like, I'm just gonna tire him out. And then you're probably thinking, like, let me tire him out. Figure like, and then we'd just barely be that tired, and nobody goes anywhere when we're grappling.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that story of one of our captains. Like, all right, you guys are done. Like, just bring somebody
Yeah,
else
and
in the
he's like,
ring. This is a waste
yeah,
of time. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like he was just like, what do you guys stop, stop? Like no.
Yeah.
I think we'd still be there if it wasn't for our captain telling us to stop.
Yeah, it'd be like gunnery sergeant still grappling. It's the same.
Yeah, for sure. For
That's
sure.
funny, dude.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Back.
Yeah. So nobody who understands the reference, when we were in the Marine Corps, one of the things was ground fighting. You had to learn how to ground fight. So me and Danny would tie up and spar, and it was pretty much a stalemate the entire time. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
Literally. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, going back to the mindset, you're like, hey, I want to get better, not being selfish. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull up the stuff you have going on. And again, I think that it's cool. I think, you know, you're like, I want to be very intentional about the things that I want to do for others. You have your birthday coming up, and your intention is to, you know, go ahead and describe to us what you plan on doing. When is your birthday? What are you going to be doing? What are you doing it for?
Yeah. So just like a little bit of background on what I'm working on right now is that I'm gonna be 34 years old this year. My birthday's April 25th, and part of me was like, oh, I should do something that's gonna be crazy and something that's gonna challenge me because even like, and I thought about this when I ran the 50 miles, and even then, like I was like putting like Instagram videos just on my progress of the week doing my 50 miles, and then it was in October, and one of the days that I did, I'm like, oh, today's the anniversary of when I ran the marathon. And kind of like Adam, I basically did it on a dare. Like my friend, we were out. I think we were having a couple of drinks out of the bar, and on a Friday night, and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna run a marathon, and one of our teammates got injured. Do you want to take their bib?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Like, cool. When is it?" It's like, "Yeah, it's on Sunday." Oh, I'm like, "Oh, like next month Sunday, 2 months, 3 months ago, or 2 months from now Sunday." They're like, "No, like this Sunday," and then I'm like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah.
Mind you, the furthest I ever ran before that was 12 miles. I just came off of an injury, so I haven't ran like in, I want to say, like 3 weeks. And I said, I'm like, you know what? F it. Like, let me do it. So that Sunday, we woke up bright and early, 5 a.m. It was the Chicago Marathon. We got to the park, and then I ran it, and without training, without actually even having a thought about running a marathon the week before, I ran it in like 3 hours and 51 minutes.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Yeah, and yeah, like I wonder if I ran, like I actually trained for it, I would have done better. But now, like, so when I was running the 50 miles, I'm like, oh, I need to do something crazy like that again too. So I'm like, oh, my birthday's coming up. I'm gonna be 34. It's like maybe I should run 34 miles. So that's what all started generating this. And then I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm like, then I started thinking about it. I didn't think about it again. It was like in October, then November, December come through, January, and I'm like, you know what? I'm actually gonna do it. So I started telling people, like, yeah, I'm gonna run 34 miles. I'm gonna run 34 miles. And then someone brought it up. I was like, well, why don't you do it for charity? And I'm like, And then selfishly, again, I said, I'm like, oh, but then that means I have to do this. I have to do that. I'm piling on more work for me. It was me. And then I started thinking about and after that, I started like one of my runs that later that week, I'm like, what are you doing, Danny? You're literally trying to stop being, you're trying to be more selfless. You're trying to, be less selfish, being like, the person that you don't want to be in, and all you're doing is 34 miles just to feed your ego. Like there's nothing else that you're gonna do. Like who's benefiting other than yourself that you're gonna be like and brag to people like, oh, you ran 34 miles. Like, yeah, I'm this type of person. It's gonna make me feel this type of way. So then that's when I decided, I'm like, you know what? it's not going to be about me. I'm going to do something. I'm going to put in the extra effort, put in the work. I'm going to show up. And then I decided to, to join the board of for the American Cancer Society. And then, as you can see here in the page, within a week, I almost raised $1,000 of me starting the fund. With but I think that this is just me like showing up and taking to the right spot, right? Like I want to be more selfless, and I want to change. So if I need to change, I need to change things about myself. And so instead of making a big deal about my birthday and running 34 miles, it's more going to be about raising funds for the American Cancer Society.
Yeah, I like that, man. So your goal is to raise 5,000. Is there a time limit on when you want that money? Is that going to be throughout the year? Is it up until your birthday? So after, what's the plan with that?
Yeah, ideally, I would love to raise it by my birthday, which is on April 25th. Gives us about 2-3 months, and I feel like on the pace that we're going today, that this seems pretty achievable. It's not over till but I believe it's like September, October timeframe. But I want to hit my goal before then, for sure, like in April, my birthday.
Yeah, that's good. So for the audio crowd, I went ahead and pulled up Danny's Instagram. You could actually find the link on his Instagram page, D Delgado 1. And there's a Facebook link. And then that Facebook link will actually take you to a donation page on Facebook where you can make a donation. His goal is to raise $5,000. And again, you're going to be turning 34 on the 25th of April. So on the 24th, you're going to be running 34 miles and all the in efforts to fundraise for the American Cancer Society. And again, so that's to raise awareness. And then, yeah, every dollar will go towards the American Cancer Society.
Yeah, it'd be greatly appreciated. $5, $2. Anything works.
Yeah. And what I'll do too, again, is I'll go ahead and post the link to the YouTube, and then anybody that's listening that may not be able to have access to that link, just again, go to Instagram, go to Danny Delgado 1, and you'll be able to find
the D Delgado 1.
Yeah, my bad. D Delgado 1 on Instagram. Danny, I appreciate your time, man. It's cool reminiscing. It's also just cool hearing your story and allowing other people to hear it. And I think that what's also unique is, as I reflect, seeing how just being a part of that process for you every step of the way, every big transition. It's been cool to be able to be there for you and just see how, again, you constantly challenging yourself. And, I would love to go back to, there's two main things that kind of go back to my mind. There was the one where you had transitioned to your first job, and you were asking me like, what should I do? Should I apply? Should I take the job or whatever? And I was like, what is it that you want? And we're talking about benefits and stuff. And for people who don't know, like financial advising, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of it is just based on your performance. Like you only get paid when you perform, and I don't know how that works. So, but essentially, what that means to me is that if you're not getting clients, you're not making money. So,
yep.
And I think you did exceptionally well in many cases. You essentially built the business 3 or 4 times over. And so the first story was like you applying and getting started, and I think working through the HR package and benefits and all that stuff. And then when you were down in Tampa, you like, I remember the phone call. You're like, hey, I want to go back to Chicago. I love my mentor. He's been great for me. I just want to start over, and I want to try again in Chicago. And you basically had an X amount of money saved up in your savings account, which is, I don't know that amount. And I felt like it wasn't that much compared to how much you were making at the time, but
yeah, no. Not even close.
Yeah. So then you just took the chance. You knew exactly what you wanted to do, and you just said, I'm going to do it. And you had that tough conversation. And I know you had a lot of respect for your mentor, and it was hard to have that conversation. But I also understand he honored that decision. And again, you took that leap of faith and you made it happen, which I think speaks volumes to who you are,
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's crazy that you knew Danny Delgado when he was like a punk 20-year-old. 14 years later now, it's like still a punk Danny Delgado, but a little bit better, a little more fine polished.
Yeah, and I think I do think too, man. Like, just kind of reflecting on this conversation, right? Like, one thing I admire is that you're not afraid to ask questions. You're not afraid to ask for help. You're not afraid to ask for guidance. And the fact that you mentioned you have a mentor, um, the fact that you reach out to me for any advice that I can give, and like when you do the 50 miler, you're like, hey, I want to do 50 miles in the week, and I'm like, well, that's cool, but like I know nothing about what you've done already.
Yeah.
And I kind of gave you some like, we talked not just about like getting it done and being methodical about it, but I was like, all right, what is your foundation? And then two, what is your mindset? Like, do you even care about doing all this? Or you just want to get it done, And I think it was a little bit of both, where you had that 30-mile base, so clearly you can do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I proposed the double digits. And then the mindset for you is like, all right, like I already did, 26 mile or 36. Like I could obviously just knock it out right now and be done,
Yeah.
So
Sure.
it's cool to see, again, just even like people look at me and they think I'm here because of me, but a lot of times it's somebody took the time to give me information. I took the time to ask questions and listen. And even when I was going through my health stuff, I was still asking questions all the time, but I can't really accept this for myself. And I had to figure out like, who is Adam? What do I want? What do I want to achieve? What does the end goal look like? And again, I think in your story, you've crossed that so many times, and then you found an outlet through running to kind of keep you grounded. And two other things I just want to hit on about your story, like you talked about the older gentleman, you went out to the like the financial advisor club or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they were like, how are you able to do all that? And a lot of times people ask that question, and when it comes to doing things and getting stuff done, what do you think is the main thought process, or what do you say to somebody who was like, hey, I have all these things that I want to accomplish. I don't have the time of day. I don't have the skill sets. I don't, so many things. And again, hearing your story, it's like, I didn't even have the education. I got the education, I didn't have the knowledge. I figured it out. Like, what would you say to somebody like on the fence, and thinking about all these things they want to do, and not sure which direction to go, how to get started, that type of person more so than anything.
Okay. So the first thing I would tell them to be is don't be afraid of failure, right? Because you should actually embrace failure, right? Failure should be your best friend. I think failure is your greatest teacher, your greatest motivator. Like if it wasn't for my failures, I don't think I would have been in the position that I am today, right? Because like I had to jack things up in my life, and I purposely do it and unpurposely do it, right? But because you're gonna learn from your failures. Like I've failed over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, but I didn't beat myself. Yeah, I did beat myself up, but I continued to push forward. Like I know that failure, that pain is I feel that pain because I know I'm gonna grow. So by feeling that pain, that means I'm like, oh, I'm heading to the right direction, right? I'm gonna be moving forward. Like, yeah, I might be stuck there for like a little bit, but I know after I overcome it, give me more. I want more. Like failure to me is like I'm okay with failure. I'm so comfortable with failure. You're like, why? I'm like, because it teaches me the most. Like failure is your greatest teacher. So I'm very comfortable with failure. So if anybody's on the fence or anybody's like saying what happens, because you're gonna what if a million times. You could say, what if there's an asteroid and comes down and crashes the earth? Who cares? Nothing happens after that, right? Everybody's dead, right? So you could what if the F word out of everything, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's just like, be okay with failure, be comfortable with failure, make your failure of your friend, because I think that's what stops everybody and anybody from going but to moving forward, right? Like I was scared to go to boot camp. Guess what? I signed up and I did boot camp, right? I thought I didn't, I didn't think I was intelligent enough to go to school. Like I don't think even now, like I don't think I'm smart enough. I graduated high school with a 1.7, 1.8 GPA.
I think that's right. That's just right below average to be. I think 2.0 is actual average to be honest. But anyways, continue. Yeah.
Yeah. No, to that point, right? And I just never applied myself. I graduated college from DePaul University with the 3.3. I should have graduated at 3.5. But that's another topic, right? I had an ex-girlfriend at the time that took a lot of my time during that time period.
Stole your focus. I got you.
Yeah, so it's like whenever I have focus, I do good. Right. And being a financial advisor, like I knew that was like there's no base salary, right? I don't know any rich people that could be like, hey Danny, here's money. Right. So I literally, without any help, without any background or any kind of substance, I said, I'm either gonna do this or I'm gonna regret this for the rest of my life because I didn't do this. And of course, I'm like, well, that sounds like that side's not gonna be ideal. So let me do it, and if I fail, I fail. Like, and there was plenty of times that I almost failed. It wasn't like I'm like, oh, you did good. No, I failed miserably my first year. I failed miserably my first year being in Chicago again. Like, there's all these failures, but I kept going. I said, you know what, let's go. Let's keep going. And there was a time, even like the first day I got back from Chicago, I called Adam and I'm like, dude, I am hurting. Like I'm in the tippy point. Like I'm at failure, like rock bottom type failure. Like I was like doubting myself. But then like I pushed forward and then like I kept going. Right. I made failure my buddy. Like I'm like, good. You failed, good. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Right? What are you gonna do about it? Good. You failed. You failed again. Good. What are you gonna do about it? You're gonna like keep going. You know, like I motivate myself. I tell like I run. I change things outside my life from my work to be like, all right, let me get these little wins outside of work, or let me get these little wins. Me doing this, like joining a club, being a board member. Like I want to get outside wins so it could help me with, motivate me with this. You know, it's like Michael Jordan's mentality. He motivates himself by saying like, oh, that guy said something about this, let me motivate myself to do good. Like, so that's the same type of mentality that I use.
Yeah, I love that, man. Again, it takes me back to some other key points you said. Like I was thinking about the guy who was questioning your motives when they're like, well, what do you want to do with this money? You're like, well, I want to invest it. Like, why? You're only 19 years old or whatever, and your mindset is like you already had your mind made up. There's no plan B, and you're willing to do whatever it took to succeed. And I think you mentioned, Michael Jordan had that mindset. And again, as you speak, I see that mindset demonstrated in you. Knowing your story personally, I see it in you. You live it out. It's not just words. And I think that's the point that people got to get to. They got to get to the point where they do face their failures. They decide that this is really what I want to do. My mind's been made up. Even before this failure occurred, there is no plan B. I ain't going back. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to succeed. So I think, yeah, Danny, I think having you on has been great. I feel like we could talk forever. I know we can.
Like, we're just getting started, no?
Yeah, no, I feel like we go to like a round two, to be honest. But I do want to be cognizant of time. Danny, I appreciate your time. I'm going to pull up your Instagram. And for anybody who wants to go ahead and donate to Danny Delgado's cause, I think the easiest thing to do would be go to DDelgado1 at Instagram, find the Facebook link, and you can help contribute to his plans to raise $5,000 for his 34th birthday for the American Cancer Society. Yeah, Danny, it's been a pleasure having you on here, man. It's been good. I'm glad. I didn't know how this conversation was going to go, but I think it's been pretty amazing. It allows the world to kind of hear your story.
Yeah.
And really just understand the adversities that you went through, and two, just the perspective of what we go through as Marines as we transition. And I feel like it's a constant state of transition too. We're always kind of relearning ourselves, growing, adapting.
Yeah. It's like what we say in the Marine Corps, right? Complacency kills, right? So we always have to adapt and overcome.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I'll put up your stuff one last time.
Hey, any couple bucks, that's all that matters. No, nothing extravagant. $35 is good.
Is that $35 or $3 to $5?
$3 to $5. 35 is nice too, though.
Yeah. Well, Danny Delgado, thank you very much for your time. Again, this is the IBEX Method Podcast. Thank you for checking us out. Go ahead and if you want any financial advice, contact Danny Delgado. Make him, you can become one of his clients. He does a wonderful job. So,
yeah, me.
That's right. All right, Danny, have a good one, man.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
Thank you.